I am Andrew Ryan, and I'm here to ask you a question. Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow? No, says the man in Washington, it belongs to the poor. No, says the man in the Vatican, it belongs to God. No, says the man in Moscow, it belongs to everyone. I rejected those answers. Instead, I chose something different. I chose the impossible. I chose Rapture.
That was Shicheng, China, a 600-year-old city that was flooded in 1959, and that was Andrew Ryan from the brilliant video game Bioshock, talking about his extreme libertarian beliefs a year later. One real and one fiction. Bioshock, if you haven't played it, is a game of artistic genius that places the player in the shoes of a plane crash victim in the North Atlantic in 1960. You swim to the shore of a nearby lighthouse in which you find an elevator leading underwater, and then you find the underwater city of Rapture. The city was created by a man named Andrew Ryan, a staunch libertarian who sought a place in which he could live with like-minded people, pushing the boundaries of science, art, and technology without any governmental restriction. Not being able to find a city where he could live like that on land, he created his own city, underwater, called Rapture. It didn't go very well.
Is it someone new?
Unlike Rapture, Shicheng is clearly not livable, and it wasn't built underwater. It was flooded purposely in 1959 to make way for a dam. It stands 50 meters deep, perfectly preserved under Lake Quando near Shanghai. Forgotten for decades, it now stands as a relic of the Ming and Qing dynasties, with some structures dating as far back as the 16th century. It's much older than Rapture, but still relatively young in terms of sunken cities. In the year 2000, French underwater archaeologist, best job title ever, Franck Goddio, rediscovered the lost, thought to be legend city of Heracleion in Egypt. The city disappeared into the mouth of the Nile Delta 1,200 years ago, likely due to its foundation melting away over time, as well as a massive earthquake in the 7th century. The sunken city was found near Alexandria, just 2.5 kilometers out and around 30 feet or 10 meters deep. Prior to its rediscovery, it was thought to be a legend, as there had been no physical evidence ever discovered. After years of searching, Goddio's team discovered an entire sunken port city, including temples, docks, gold, statues, and many sunken ships. The city has been nicknamed the Gate to Egypt, as it revealed that the Egyptians were a lot more heavily invested in trade with Europe than previously thought. Similarly, in Greece, a sunken city called Pavlopetri was discovered in 1967. Pavlopetri was also a port city, but it's way older than Heracleion, with its heyday being around 4,000 years ago, during the Bronze Age. It's believed that in 1000 BC, a series of earthquakes submerged the city. Archaeologists have found roads and walls and semi-detached homes with gardens, and even some evidence of complex water management systems, gutters, and channels, a suburban life 4,000 years ago. They found warehouses along the coast that would probably manage the importing and exporting of goods, a complex process that would require advanced accounting techniques similar to the ones that we use today. As you'll see, this narrative isn't all that unusual. There are sunken cities and ruins in the Gulf of Cambay, in Lake Titicaca, in Samoa, and many more. But those were all cities that were lived in before they were lost to the sea, not cities you could live in the sea. Welcome to the Ocean Spiral. Not a city yet, but a concept for a fully self-sufficient underwater city that could support 5,000 people. It was created by a Japanese company as a reaction to the growing threat of rising sea levels. It would float out in the middle of the ocean and descend 75 stories towards the ocean floor. It would even be powered by the ocean itself, using the difference in temperature from surface water and deep water to create thermal energy with science. But that's just a pretty idea. What can we actually live in underwater? In 1962, Jacques Cousteau created an underwater layer. Because of course he did. The Conshelf, and later Conshelf 2 and 3, was an experiment led by Cousteau as a short-term living solution for deep-sea divers. At its peak, the Conshelf 3 was able to hold 6 divers 328 feet or 100 meters deep for just under a month. The project was primarily funded by the French petrochemical industry, and when they found out that the work being done by Cousteau's team could easily be done by machines, the project was cancelled. Or shelved. Or con-shelved. God, I'm funny. But the Conshelf 2 is still there and creepy as hell. There were a bunch of these as well. SEALAB, Tektite, Hydrolab, just to name a few, but they've all since closed. Except for one. the Aquarius. No, not that one. That one. Operating out of Key Largo, it is one of the last remaining underwater livable laboratories. This time, instead of studying how to exploit the seabed, they're studying how to save it. Go us! But you're probably not a marine biologist, so how can you get your underwater live on? Well, lucky for you, Flora's got you covered. A sentence rarely heard, I'm aware. Opened in 1986, Jules Undersea Lodge is aptly named, as it's the world's only fully underwater hotel. The hotel features a whole 2 bedrooms, but they do have world-famous delivery pizza, which actually sounds super impressive. So far we've seen lost underwater cities and small-scale underwater facilities, but nothing to really the scale of livability that Andrew Ryan created with Rapture. Until now. Welcome to Atlantica. They gotta get better names.
Mankind has been a frequent visitor to this immense empire, but now we intend to go there to stay. We have our sights set on building, for the first time, a permanent human colony in the oceans. After thousands of years of civilization, mankind is finally pushing his boundaries beyond the tiny enclaves called land into a 3-dimensional empire, much more expansive and filled with great promise.
Envisioned by Dennis Chamberlain, an engineer at NASA, Atlantica is a project he's been working towards his entire life. He imagines a vast society on the floor of the world's oceans, which he's grouped together and renamed Aquatica. He is currently soliciting new members, so if you do want to join the great nation of Atlantica, please do, and then tell me everything that happens. Chamberlain hopes to create an underwater society to save the world. Andrew Ryan, however, wanted to escape it and make his own. And he's not alone. Instead of underwater, our libertarian future could be on water, or so thinks the Seasteading Institute.
Why Seastead? Cure diseases, clean the oceans, reduce carbon in the atmosphere, feed the world, power civilization, end poverty for millions, replace fossil fuels with kelp. The old land-based rules are preventing this from happening.
A project based on the idea of an ocean filled with thousands of floating mini-cities, specifically floating away from laws and regulation, I guess with the hopes of creating sea slug stem cell superpowers. Anyone read Pendragon #2 with the floating cities? That was my childhood. This is what's called a micronation, an unofficial, unrecognized by other countries, country. They range from the silly, Douglas Adams-esque Arakan Empire, whose mission statement is brilliantly, the empire exists to facilitate the evolution of a society wherein the empire is no longer necessary, to the political Principality of Saborja, a small town between the border of Italy and France whose independence is hotly contested. Today, these micronations are virtually a dime a dozen. Whether it's Danny Wallace's apartment-sized kingdom, the Principality of Sealand, the Holy Empire of Reunion, or the Republic of Molosia. But the ones that are the most reminiscent of Rapture are the staunch libertarian ones. In the early 1970s, Operation Atlantis, a cruise ship packed with Ayn Rand-inspired American libertarians, launched, and then promptly caught fire and sank in the Caribbean. The Principality of Fredonia was another libertarian micronation attempt, this time led by a group of university students from Texas who tried to lease land in Somaliland. It's starting to sound like this one just exists so people like me will talk about it on the internet. The aforementioned Seasteading Institute are currently raising money to build their floating Rapture, but they wouldn't be the first. Giorgio Rosa, like Andrew Ryan, was fed up with the rules and regulation on land, so he turned to the sea. He constructed the Republic of Rose Island off the coast of Italy in 1968 as a tourist attraction. But then his intentions were made clear when he declared independence from Italy for his man-made island. It didn't go very well. The Italian government declared war and then promptly blew up the short-lived Republic of Rose Island. That seems to be the general fate of micronations, whether it's conflict with the country they're separating from, or literally sinking into the ocean to join the ancient lost cities, or succumbing to the dangerous addictions of sea slug juice. It seems Rapture's fate isn't all that unique. What do you guys think? Will we ever live underwater, and would you want to? Let me know in the comments, and I just wanted to give you guys an update on my Patreon campaign, which you guys have been awesome at supporting. We've had like several people jump in, which is awesome. If you guys don't know about it, I'm doing a Patreon campaign because I'm trying to do these videos more often, and I need to hire an editor because it's just so much work. It's like 30 hours a week on top of my job, which is crazy. so I want to hire an editor. So if you guys want to go check out my Patreon campaign, there's a lot of fun perks you guys can check out that hopefully you'll find are cool. You can click here to go do that. Also, you may have noticed there was a different name at the start of the episode. I did that because I feel like this has been a show without a name for a really long time, and I feel like it needed a name, and that name is Not Exactly Normal, which I felt was very appropriate for the type of things that I talk about. Nothing's gonna be changing, it's gonna be the same sort of stuff. I just felt that it was a name that encompasses everything that I find interesting and enjoy sharing with you guys. Also, it's my favorite Batman quote. Extra points go to whoever can tell me what Batman movie that's from. If you haven't already, be sure to click right on my face to subscribe, or at least think about it.